he's retired from the last two. And of course, Niki Lauda's win at Brands Hatch closed in within 1.5 points of the championship leader. But the Austrian had an unhappy practice yesterday. He spun while warming up for his fastest lap, damaged the nose of his Marlboro McLaren as well as his pride. So Niki starts on the fourth row.
Sie herzlich willkommen zum 45. Großen Preis von Deutschland im Mottodrom von Hockenheim, den das zweite deutsche Fernsehen für die Zuschauer in Deutschland, in Österreich und in der Schweiz live überträgt. 8 Kameras an der Strecke, eine tragbare Kamera an den Boxen und eine Kamera im Zeppelin-Luftschiff, aus der eben jetzt aufgenommen wird. Aus diesem Luftschiff also werden in den nächsten 2 Stunden, wie ich hoffe, Sie mit packenden Bildern versorgen, mit Bildern aus der faszinierenden Welt der Formel 1. Erste bange Frage, wie ist das Wetter? Nun, wir hatten gestern im Morgentraining Regen. Am Nachmittag war es dann wieder etwas besser, nachts wieder etwas Regen. Zurzeit sieht es nicht schlecht aus. Wir haben gute Chancen, einen trockenen Großen Preis von Deutschland zu erleben. Ein Rennen, das unter normalen Verhältnissen ausgetragen werden kann. Ein gewisses Risiko besteht allerdings, dass die Schleusen sich dann doch öffnen. Hoffen wir, dass es normal läuft. Hoffen wir, dass der Große Preis normal, ohne Unterbrechungen über die Bühne rollen kann. Und nach dem Wetter wären wir auch schon bei den Zuschauern. Wir haben ein fast volles Haus, aber kein ganz volles Haus. Und ich glaube, das dürfte mit zu tun haben mit dem großen Abwesenden an diesem Rennen, mit dem Deutschen Stefan Bellof. Es ist eigentlich völlig unverständlich, dass dieser talentierte deutsche Fahrer, der in der ersten Saisonhälfte von sich reden gemacht hat, der in Monte Carlo ein blendendes Rennen fuhr, dass dieser junge Deutsche hier nicht am Start sein kann. Es gibt eigentlich zwei Gründe dafür. Der eine, das Rennen, das er für Porsche in Mosport fahren muss, und dann aber auch das Gewirr, das Gerangel um das Team Tyrrell, das ja hier unter Vorbehalt fährt. Und, das muss man auch noch sagen, mit dem Sauger Tyrrell Ford Cosworth bestehen hier in Hockenheim natürlich ohnehin wenig Chancen. Nun, wir haben aber trotzdem einen deutschen Fahrer am Start. Es ist Manfred Winkelhock, und mein Kollege Falco Fröhner an der tragbaren Kamera wird versuchen, ihm kurz vor dem Start jetzt noch eine Frage zu stellen. Und auch am Start natürlich Marc Surer. Er steht in der gleichen Reihe mit Winkelhock. Surer und Winkelhock, beide in der Mitte des Feldes nach guten Trainingsergebnissen in
Manfred Winkelhock,
guter
schön, dass Sie noch
Startposition.
einen Augenblick Zeit haben. Wie gehen Sie in das Rennen? Mit welcher taktischen Einstellung? Werden Sie von vornherein aggressiv fahren oder eher nur auf Ankommen, endlich ankommen?
Na gut, das Aggressivfahren, das mache ich eigentlich im Training, und da schaut es auch recht gut aus. Da versuche ich immer recht schnell zu fahren. Im Rennen habe ich an für sich andere Taktik. Ich versuche jetzt erstmal natürlich aus der ersten Runde heil zurückzukommen. Und je nachdem, wie das Auto liegt, wie es funktioniert, wir hatten relativ wenig Gelegenheit im Training, das Auto in einer Rennabstimmung in eine 100%ige Balance zu bringen. Deshalb muss ich das mal abwarten, und dann, je nachdem, wie das Publikum richtig mitmacht und wenn es bei mir einigermaßen läuft, dann versuche ich nachher schon, das Tempo ein bisschen zu forcieren.
Toi, toi, toi. Dankeschön.
Das war Manfred Winkelhock, die einzige Hoffnung hier der Deutschen, und Falco Fröhner wird versuchen, jetzt auch kurz mit Marc Surer zu sprechen.
Marc Surer, haben Sie ein gutes Gefühl vor diesem Rennen? Sie haben ja nun auch sehr viel Pech gehabt in dieser Saison. Mit welcher Einstellung gehen Sie jetzt rein?
Ja, auf jeden Fall. Es kann nur besser werden, und das Auto fühlt sich gut an im Moment, und ich bin eigentlich sehr zuversichtlich.
Also insgesamt eine positive Einstellung zu diesem Rennen?
Ich möchte meinen Fans, die ja zu Tausenden aus der Schweiz gekommen sind, was zeigen, ja.
Vielen Dank, toi.
Ja, danke Falco Fröhner. Wir haben neben Niki Lauda, einem der großen Favoriten, noch einen Österreicher am Start in seinem zweiten großen Preis, Joe Gardner, der an den Start geht in der vorletzten Startreihe. Er fährt den Osella Alfa Romeo Nummer 30 Gardner, der mit 1,55,594 eine respektable Trainingszeit fuhr und sich also für dieses Rennen qualifizieren konnte. Und während hier jetzt noch die Nationalhymne gespielt wird, werfen wir einen Blick, nachdem wir vom Wetter bereits gesprochen haben, einen Blick auf die großen Kontrahenten dieses Rennens, meine Damen und Herren. Sie wissen es, Alain Prost und Niki Lauda, das sind die zwei Duellanten aus dem gleichen Rennstall, die hier kämpfen werden um die Vorherrschaft in der Formel 1 und darum kämpfen werden, einen Schritt weiterzukommen in der Weltmeisterschaft. Alain Prost mit 34 ein Zweitel Punkten, der Leader, aber nur noch knapp der Leader vor Niki Lauda, der inzwischen nach seinem Sieg am Großen Preis von England seinen Punktestand auf 33 gebracht hat. Prost und Lauda, beide auf McLaren-Tag Porsche. Sie werden hier einen weiteren Strauß ausfechten, dieses faszinierende Duell der Stallkollegen, und es wird ein weiterer sein, der hier um die Weltmeisterschaft kämpft und um die Verteidigung der Weltmeisterschaft, die niemandem gelungen ist im folgenden Jahr seit 1960, seit Jack Brabham. Jetzt Niki Lauda im Bild. Lauda, der sich erkältet hat, der eine unruhige Nacht hinter sich hatte. Er hatte leichtes Fieber, ist schwer erkältet, hat es mit den Bronchien zu tun. Aber Lauda fuhr überzeugend beim Aufwärmtraining heute früh. Er ist von Dungel offenbar, Willi Dungel, seinem Masseur und Betreuer, offenbar doch in Form gebracht worden. Und jetzt hier Alain Prost, der 29-jährige Franzose, der Leader der Weltmeisterschaft, der Mann, der gegen Niki Lauda kämpft. Wir sprachen vorher von Piquet. Piquet hat noch Chancen, die Weltmeisterschaft, die er letztes Jahr holte, zu verteidigen und damit in die Renngeschichte einzugehen, als der Erste, der seit Jack Brabham im folgenden Jahr einen Titel verteidigen konnte. Aber näher dran ist eigentlich Elio De Angelis, der Mann, der Italiener auf Lotus Renault. Elio De Angelis, der Mann, den wir hier mit der Kamera sehen, der Mann, der der regelmäßigste war in dieser Saison, der bis auf einen einzigen Ausfall sich immer in den Punkten klassierte und damit in der Weltmeisterschaft an dritter Stelle liegt mit 26,5 Punkten. De Angelis war viermal Dritter, zweimal Vierter, zweimal Fünfter und einmal Sechster. Eine Serie der Zuverlässigkeit. Und die Kamera jetzt auf Derek Warwick. Auch Warwick, ein Mann, der noch Weltmeister werden kann. Warwick auf Renault, der Mann, der von Tolman kam. Auch er gut in den Punkten. Warwick bringt es auf 19 Zähler, zumindest theoretisch kann auch er noch Weltmeister werden. Unheimlich viel Volk noch hier bei Start und Ziel. Kamera jetzt auf Patrick Tambay, einer der Pechvögel des Saisonbeginns. Tambay liegt in der Weltmeisterschaft weiter zurück. Er hatte keinen guten Jahresbeginn. Er, der Mann, der von Ferrari zu Renault wechselte. Tambay, der natürlich am Großen Preis von Deutschland ein bekannter Mann ist. Er gewann ja hier seinen ersten großen Preis 1982. Und die Kamera jetzt auf Nelson Piquet, den Brasilianer. Piquet, dem es im Training nicht ganz so gut lief, wie er wünscht, der in der dritten Reihe steht, der seinen 89. großen Preis fährt. 12 Rennen hat er gewonnen. Zweimal hintereinander dieses Jahr nach der Pechsträhne zu Saisonbeginn in Amerika drüben, nämlich in Montreal und Detroit. Michele Alboreto jetzt im Bild. Alboreto, der Sieger des großen Preises von Belgien. Und jetzt wird mir gemeldet, ganz leichter Regen. Ganz leichter Regen drunten an der Strecke. Wir werden sehen, wie das sich entwickelt. Alboreto ist ebenfalls einer der bisherigen Sieger. Es gab ja die Siegesserien von Prost und von Lauda. Je 3 Rennen hatten sie gewonnen. Jetzt sehen Sie die Startaufstellung. Prost, Alain Prost auf McLaren Tag Porsche Turbo auf der Pole Position. Und daneben Elio De Angelis. Nur 500 Sekunden war Elio De Angelis langsamer. Auch hier zeigte er wieder die aufsteigende Form des Renault und auch seine aufsteigende Form. Dann in der zweiten Reihe Warwick und Tambay, die beiden Renault-Piloten. Bei De Angelis Renault, das ist natürlich insofern eine Falscheinblendung, es handelt sich um den Lotus Renault. Dann die beiden echten Renault, Warwick und Tambay in der zweiten Reihe. Piquet und Alboreto dann in der dritten Reihe. Inzwischen werden die Motoren angelassen. Wir werden also in ungefähr einer Minute das Signal zum Vorstart, zum Start für die Einführungsrunde sehen. Alboreto, dann Lauda, Fabi in der vierten Reihe, Senna, der Überzeugte, der vor allem im Regen Überzeugte, der junge Brasilianer auf Tolman und Arnoux, weiter Andrea de Cesaris auf Ligier und Jacques Lafitte auf Williams, Winkelhock und Sura beide in der siebten Startreihe. Wir haben dann Boutsen und Menzel, weiter Eno und Cheever, Keke Rosberg weit hinten. Rosberg, der Ex-Weltmeister, hatte nur Probleme im Training. Und Patrese, dann Ginzani und Aljo, Gardner und Rothgatter und schließlich Jonathan Palmer und Stefan Johansson mit dem einzigen Tyrrell. Feld ist auf der Einlaufrunde über 44 Rennrunden für dieser große Preis von Deutschland. Das ist eine Distanz von 299,068 Kilometern. 45 Runden stehen zwar im Programm, das Rennen geht aber nur über 44. Die Wagen fahren jetzt die Reifen warm. Wir sind in der Anfahrt zum Wald, zur ersten Schikane. Das werden Sie dann gleich später sehen. Typisches Anfahren der Reifen, damit die Reifen Temperatur kriegen. Und jetzt nähert sich also das Feld mit Alain Prost an der Spitze der ersten Schikane. Diese Schikane wird im dritten Gang gefahren und das Tempo reduziert von rund 300 Kilometern in der Stunde hinunter auf 150. Beschleunigung aus dieser ersten Schikane heraus, durch den Wald weiter, vorbei an der Unglücksstelle, wo Jim Clark 1968 tödlich verunglückte. Seitdem ist die Strecke ja optimal abgesichert worden mit weiten Sturzräumen, mit Fangzäunen und Leitplanken. Jetzt zweite Schikane. Das ist der Eingang zur Ostkurve, die früher mit Hochgeschwindigkeit befahren wurde. Hier muss diese Schikane nun genommen werden, meist im zweiten Gang. Das Tempo liegt hier nur bei etwa 110 Kilometern in der Stunde. Und dann wird voll beschleunigt in die Ostkurve hinein, die natürlich jetzt voll gefahren werden kann. Die Wagen jetzt also in der Ostkurve. Und weiter werden Reifen warm gefahren. Und nun nähert sich das Feld der dritten Schikane, also der Schikane der Gegengeraden. Wir sind jetzt auf dem Weg zurück zum Motodrom, immer noch im Wald. Und Sie sehen die Tafeln 300, 200, 100. Und es wird extrem spät gebremst heute in der Formel 1. Aus höchster Geschwindigkeit wird nach der 100-Meter-Tafel gebremst für diese Schikane. Eine relativ flüssige Schikane, dritter Gang wieder, Tempo um 150 Kilometer in der Stunde. Und aus der Schikane heraus, jetzt zurück in Richtung Motodrom-Eingangskurve. Das sind natürlich Teleaufnahmen hier. Die Kamera weit vorpostiert, hat mit großem Teleobjektiv hier die Wagen im Auge. Das alles ist nicht so dicht gedrängt, wie es hier eben im Tele ausschaut. Und nun wird eben von der Boxe gemeldet, Alain Prost hatte Probleme mit der Benzinpumpe und stieg auf den Ersatzwagen um. Er hat gerade noch rechtzeitig, bevor das Boxentor zugesperrt wurde, den Ersatzwagen nehmen können, muss das Rennen also im Ersatzwagen bestreiten. Sicher ein leichtes Handicap, Probleme also mit der Benzinzufuhr. Und das ist nicht unbedingt ein ermutigender Auftakt für Alain Prost. So, fällt inzwischen durch die Sachskurve hindurch und nimmt nun Aufstellung hier bei Start und Ziel. Das ist das übliche Prozedere bei einem großen Preis. Wenn der letzte Wagen auf seiner Startposition steht und die Funktionäre mit Zeichen dem Rennleiter das gemeldet haben, wird die Ampel, die Startampel auf Rot gestellt und innerhalb von 4 bis maximal 7 Sekunden wird der Starter dann auf Grün schalten, damit ist der Weg frei. Es kann Startverzögerungen geben.
Teammate Niki Lauda trying his T-car to lead off this, the 11th round of this year's 16-race World Championship. All the cars in position, waiting for that light to glow first red and then green, with Alan Prost next to Elio De Angelis and Britain's Derek Warwick sitting next to his teammate Tambay. The red light is on, the engine's rev up, and it's away, and De Angelis is through the stop, and Warwick trying to find a way through the back. Derek Warwick pressing De Angelis, can't get past him, Prost takes it, and Elio De Angelis, the John Player Specialist, in the lead, followed by Prost, followed, I believe, by Derek Warwick. James, what about that start?
Very clean start. These turbos are very difficult to get off the line. I think you can probably hear all the popping and banging as they get the revs up when the green light goes on, but it was a very even start. Lauda made quite a good start in the middle, but didn't really make any progress. And De Angelis, indeed, has got the lead. Prost behind him, so the front row men are there, and then one of the Renaults, I can't see which one, following them. So good clean start, but McLaren's looked very good in this race, and I think we should watch out for Niki Lauda, so long as everything's going well for him. He had an engine change last night, as did both McLarens, and he was very, very pleased with the performance of the engine that they put in this morning.
Elio De Angelis, the man who was just fit for pole position by a superb lap by Alan Prost, 142 miles an hour, not 2.2 seconds off the previous pole position record, but it's De Angelis who's got away cleaner. Prost seemed to have a bit of a tangle with the Renault, which we think was probably Derek Warwick, who almost started from the front row for the first time in his career, but was pushed off by these two gentlemen, and Piquet has got past one of the Renaults. It is now De Angelis, Prost and Piquet, and then the two Renaults, and we still haven't been able to see close enough which one it is, but I think that is Derek Warwick in fourth position, followed by Tambay, followed by Senna. James.
Yes, a good opening run by Nelson Piquet, who was very pleased with his car in practice, and then this morning when they ran into the warm-up, he wasn't at all happy. But the Brabham has been, by and large, one of the quickest, if not the quickest car in a straight line this year, and there are a lot of straight lines at Hockenheim, and if he can get the performance out of his chassis that he would like, then he will be a pretty competitive man. The Renault is in fourth, fifth. Derek Warwick is the fourth place man, and there is Mark Schurer slowing down, looking to be in trouble. He had a bit of difficulty getting away at the start. I think it was him who was left at the start.
Yes, Mark Schurer was left at the start, so one of the Barclay Arrows slowing, but no slowing Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special, looking for his first victory since, of course, we lost the late Colin Chapman. Elio De Angelis, the man who has finished every single race this season, and 9 of them in the points. He's third in the World Championship. He's only 8 points behind Prost. And, of course, a victory here could make the rest of this championship very exciting indeed. And there is Paul Schurer on his way to the pits. Schurer had a lot of Swiss fans here. There are 80,000 people in this stadium. It's a cloudy but warm and dry day, and that means a very fast race indeed. So Elio De Angelis leading from Alan Prost, leading from Nelson Piquet, with Derek Warwick and Tambay behind, and all those men, with the exception of Tambay, up in the championship hunt. But now Niki Lauda is quite a long way behind at this point, James, but you think he might be playing it cannily. I think he's about 7th, isn't he?
Yes, I don't think he'll be trying to rush through. He is, in fact, in 8th place at the moment. He'll want to settle and get everything sorted out.
Elio De Angelis coming up for the end of lap 2, James.
Yes, and Ayrton Senna is going extremely well. He's moved up into 5th place, and Senna is once again confirming the really outstanding talent that he showed both in Formula 3 racing last year and in Grand Prix racing this year. So Ayrton Senna doing an absolutely marvellous job in the Toleman, for the Toleman team, and that's just as well because I gather that the proprietor of the Toleman team, Ted Toleman, managed to put £250,000 worth of boat at the bottom of the sea, which is a bit of a sudden shock, somewhere around the south-west corner of Wales, doing the Round Britain powerboat race, so he'll probably be quite keen to get hold of some prize money today to save up for his next one.
I think, James, you'll agree that Ayrton Senna will be happy to be out on the track doing the job he does best. He's been hounded by the press here because the feeling is that Senna will be teased away from the Tolman team, either by the John Player Lotus team or the Williams team. He's certainly one of the most sought-after men in the business, second in Monaco, third at Brands Hatch, and I'm sure you agree, James, he's the best of the new crop of drivers.
Without any doubt. I mean, he's a really exceptional talent. He's probably the most exceptional talent we've seen for some quite long time coming into Grand Prix racing, and the Tolman team were clever enough to sign him up for 3 years, and I hope for their sake that they'll be able to hold on to it, because he has brought great spark into the team that's now doing better than when Derek Warwick was driving. They've switched their tyre manufacturer, which made a big difference, and they really are doing very well indeed. So I think hopefully that they'll be able to hang on to Senna and continue to improve.
Coming up through the curly parts of the Autodrome to the end of lap 3, and Elio De Angelis still leads from Alan Prost, Nelson Piquet, Derek Warwick, Ayrton Senna, Patrick Tambay, Niki Lauda and Savi. There is Rene Arnoux also in the championship, who must now be selected.
I should add that the Ted Tolman business, the proprietor of the team, was actually the loss of his boat was probably the curse of Hunt, and I'm glad to say that the curse didn't work on his racing team, because I have no axe to grind with them, but of course that was over rather childish behaviour about some justifiable criticism of his team earlier in the year. But of course I'm very happy to say that his team is doing extremely well, and they deserve all the success that they can get.
We're on lap 4 of the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, one of 2 races to be held in Germany this year. The new Grand Prix of Europe that was held for the first time at Brands Hatch last year will be at the revised Nürburgring. But for the moment we're on what will surely be the second fastest circuit of this season. Now there isn't Silverstone this year. We expect these cars to be averaging over 130 miles an hour, and it's Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special setting the pace from Alain Prost in the Marlboro McLaren. Nelson Piquet, the world champion, third in the Brown. Fourth, Derek Warwick in the Renault. Fifth, Ayrton Senna. And I think we'll find that Niki Lauda has perhaps moved up to 6th place. As we see them sweep round this Autodrome, this is where the majority of the 80,000 people are. It's a bit of a wibbly-wobbly part, but we've actually seen some great overtaking manoeuvres here. Particularly, I remember Alan Jones in 1981 taking both the Renault. Elio De Angelis, he comes in the lead. De Angelis on the Goodyear tyres, Alain Prost on the Michelin tyres. Goodyear not had a very good season with their new radials, and that in fact is the view from the Goodyear airship. So they're doing one thing very well indeed, James.
Yes, and a pretty good view it is too. Gives us you at home a little bit more idea of the shape and the layout of this Hockenheim circuit. And the good news for Goodyear, who were supplying those pictures, is that De Angelis looks to be fairly comfortable in the lead. The 3 leaders look to me to be very evenly matched indeed at this stage of the race. And so that Goodyear would appear to be getting to grips with the radial tyres that they've been running now for some time, but so I think they would agree it's quite a change in technology from the previous more conventional stiff wall construction tyres that they used to use, and there is Senna backed up, and he looks to have hit that barrier pretty hard. The corner takes the steering wheel off. That's quite normal. There's detachable steering wheel to facilitate getting out of the car. And I think we're going to have a look at what happened. Well, I think something yes, his rear wing, I think, may have fallen off the car already, because Senna went off on the straight there, and so that was a clear case, or pretty certain that there was something went wrong with the car. And what a great shame for Senna to lose control of the straight. I suspect his rear wing went.
Poor old Senna, a man, as we said, in tremendous demand. winner of the Formula 3 Championship in Britain last year, thought, we believe, by both the Lotus teams have got this man in the lead at the moment, Elio De Angelis, and the John Plain Special, leading Nia James.
Yeah, that's a very, very particularly unfortunate failure for the Tolman team, because one thing drivers don't like is things falling off cars, and that might
from Hockenheim.
His resolve, if he has any, to move teams at the end of the year. As I say, I do hope that having signed him to a 3-year contract, they can hang on to him.
We're on lap 6 of the 44-lap German Grand Prix, 166 miles. Elio De Angelis muscled his way into a lead in quite a hectic start, still holding that position. We have Alan Prost in the McLaren, and we have to remind you that Prost, who put up a sensational pole position time yesterday, found trouble with his car after this morning's warm-up. They couldn't start it. It seemed to have lost pressure, so he is out in the T car. And we wonder whether Alan Prost can do what Nelson Piquet did at Detroit, that's win the spare car. We remember Nelson Piquet saying at that time, it's hard enough to prepare one car to win, but to prepare two cars to win, even a team like your old team McLaren, James, it's hard work, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. And now Prost is a good bit closer, and in fact, he's getting into a position to threaten to overtake, and Piquet's moved up a bit as well. Now, I know that the Goodyear tyres on the Lotus don't like to be driven too hard early in the race, and it could just be that De Angelis has been forced to go harder than he wants to, and he's now moving around, covering the inside of the corner so that Prost couldn't get at him, but he wasn't really ready to have a go, and actually Prost dropped back a little bit there. If he could have got through that one quickly into the Sachs curve where they're now rounding, is one of the best places to pass on the circuit.
And while we watch Elio De Angelis, Nigel Mansell is 14th, and Jonathan Palmer certainly isn't in the top 20 at the moment, but he's driving the car that was repaired after the Brands Hatch. So there you see De Angelis, the head of Alan Prost, the head of Nelson Piquet. Three men with ambitions for the championship, and Elio De Angelis, the 26-year-old Italian, has absolutely amazed everyone this year. He's finished every one of the 10 races. He's been third 3 times. He's third in the championship, 8 points behind the man who is second in your picture, Alain Prost in the Marlboro McLaren.
Watching those three up front is very interesting, because we've got 3 different makes of engines. We have Renault in front, we have TAG, Porsche second place, and BMW in third, and they look evenly matched. Grand Prix racing has really, this year, got more competitive and closer between the cars' relative performances than it's been for some 8 years, and this is providing us, as one would expect, therefore, with a very good season indeed. We're getting some terrific racing and a jolly good close sport championship.
And we couldn't ask for a better opening this with Piquet trying to get past Prost. Piquet trying there to get past Prost to get into second place. Nelson Piquet, who's had only 4 finishes this season, but 2 wins. And this really reflects the championship itself. De Angelis third in the championship. Prost, of course, leading the championship. And Piquet, who definitely needs a win here today, is 7th in the championship. And Piquet is the only one of these 3 drivers who's ever won here. There are 5 past winners in this race. Lauda, Lafitte, Piquet, Tambay and Arnoux. And it's an interesting point, James, that nobody has ever won this race twice. Not here at Hockenheim.
Really? Well, I didn't know that. We haven't been going that long here. We used to be at the Nürburgring, and I think that future German Grand Prix will be going back there. So if anybody wants to do it, they better do it soon. In the meantime, the leaders, the 3 leaders, have constantly been up together, and I think we'll be seeing some overtaking pretty soon. De Angelis now is weaving about, not trying to push anybody off, but purely trying to break the toe, to discourage Piquet from Prost from following him, which he won't do because Prost is bright enough to follow it. This is difficult. And Prost is quick to the skate. Oh, and he's blown up. And that looks like a blow-up. Looks like a pretty comprehensive blow-up for Elio De Angelis. Turbo's on fire. Shouldn't get the rest of the car going. That's oil from the turbo burning. And Piquet having a look inside Prost, having taken advantage of all the Schmozzle. Piquet was trying to pounce on it, so that's very bad luck on Elio De Angelis, but in fairness, I don't think he'll be going home moaning. He's finished every race this year, and he'd be well advised to pull up the park, quite honestly, rather than driving that thing round on fire, risking a bigger fire, to say nothing of possibly dripping oil all over the circuit. I think he's pulling up now, though. And Nelson Piquet's in front.
Nelson Piquet took the lead while we're watching that fire. This is lap 8 of the 44-lap German Grand Prix, and Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, as we see De Angelis' car in a turn. Why he doesn't fall off, I don't know, but in the middle of the director watching that, we've seen Piquet take the lead, and De Angelis trying to limp back to the pits, but that can't do the track any good at all, James.
So it won't do Lotus's engine bill any good, but maybe he feels it's worth the £20,000 or £10,000 extra it'll cost to rebuild by putting it apart rather than walking back. Seems an expensive, rather an expensive taxi ride, though, potentially. And Nelson Piquet obviously towed past, got into Prost's slipstream, and Prost, without the advantage of the tow from De Angelis in front, I would imagine was unable to answer the Brabham straight line speed. So Nelson looked as if he just towed past them on his long straight, and but the battle is on. Prost does not look as if he's going backwards. He's now in Piquet's tow.
Nelson Piquet was starting in 6th position on the grid, and when we talked to him just before the race, he said he didn't mind. So, believe it or not, he said 5 is my lucky number. I won the world championship twice from car number 5, and that is, we see in front of us Arnoux going into the pits already in this race then, and we're on lap 9. We have lost Senna, we have lost Zura, we've lost De Angelis, and it looks as if we might be losing Arnoux. But certainly Prost is losing time to Piquet. It's not Arnoux, it is Alboreto who's just come in front of us. So Alboreto, the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, is certainly not going to win this one.
Well, there is Niki Lauda, who is in 4th place in front of the 2 Renaults and trying to get away from them.
And there's the Ferrari of Alboreto, as we saw just in front of us. We're perched high on the grandstand, probably the noisiest place in motor racing, but we do get a view of the pits, and Alboreto, sadly, into the pits, and Ferrari mechanics all over it, and it's being pushed away.
Well, now they're back in the stadium section, the leaders, and Prost was having a little look at Nelson Piquet, and De Angelis has finally made it back to the pits. Let's hope driving it around didn't do too much damage. It was, in fairness, I think, turbocharger trouble. Alboreto's problem is a misfire that's brought him into the pits, and Alain Prost fighting back for that lead that he lost during the fun and games when De Angelis blew up. So very little to choose between these two.
So the leader's on lap 10, and Nigel Mansell is 10th, and Palmer has moved up to 20th position. There are, in fact, only 26 starters in this race. Mike Packwell, the newly crowned European Formula 2 champion, wanted to start this race. He qualified 27th in the Tyrrell. Of course, he knew Hockenheim well. And Ken Churl went round all the teams asking would they sign a piece of paper saying 27 cars to start. One man, Piccinini, the Ferrari team manager, refused to sign it, so Packwell is a spectator, sadly. Not a very sporting gesture by Ferrari, and Packwell is now one of the 80,000 spectators here.
Yes, that confirmed rather unsporting and rather strange behaviour, which Ferrari have had a pattern of over the years, because one really doesn't understand what earthly difference it makes to Ferrari whether Packwell's in the race or not. And of course it does make a huge difference to Mike Packwell and the Tyrrell team. So there was no reason, I think probably the only explanation could be sour grapes, because there was no good racing or safety reason for not having Packwell in the race. And I think that is sort of behaviour that confirms Ferrari's rather strange attitude to sportsmanship.
So we're on lap 10 of this 44-lap race, with Piquet in the lead from Prost. Lauda is 3rd. Rosberg is 6th in the Williams Honda. Derek Warwick is 5th. And Fabi Keke is now fourth. Rosberg is now fourth. Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Rosberg, Warwick, Tambay, and Lafitte is Nigel Mansell 10th, and Jonathan Palmer has moved up to 18th, and we're on lap 11, James.
Yes, now Keke Rosberg is a man worth watching. He went very well indeed in the warm-up this morning on race cars. They've been having a bit of trouble before, and I've just seen Lafitte going around the back making a lot of smoke from his engine, so it looks as if Lafitte's got some problem that is pretty terminal. I don't think we'll be seeing him. Oh yes, he's smoking really badly. But Keke Rosberg has been very quick indeed in the warm-up, and the nice thing for him for a track at a track like this is that his car is very fast in a straight line, and this is important because it makes overtaking so much easier, and that's shown by the speed with which he's come through the field from not a very good grid position. He didn't have much fun in practice. He was way down on the grid, Rosberg in 19th place, and so that's a pretty stirring drive, and a lot of that is thanks to the power of his Honda engine and the aerodynamic penetration of the Williams car.
Yes, Keke Rosberg very frustrated in Friday's practice. He went outside, he was balked. He seemed to lose his temper with everything, and the turbo went, then he couldn't get the other car out in time. And of course, yesterday, for all but about 10 minutes, it was pouring with rain, so Rosberg starting from a very unfamiliar position, 90th on the grid, but my word, he's made up for it. Piquet, as we said earlier, didn't have a marvellous practice. He started from the third row in fifth position, but now he's where he wants to be in this race. He's first, he's looking for his third win of the season, his fifth finish of the season, and of course, with only those 18 points, seventh place in the championship, he really does need a win if he's going to become the first man since Jack Brown to win the championship 2 years in succession. Alboreto is back on the circuit, so our casualties out of 26 starters are now Senna, Stewart, and Lafitte.
Yes, and that is Niki Lauda, just seen actually lapping Michele Alboreto, who of course is a lap down, having had that pit stop for a misfire. And all of a sudden, Teo Fabi, as well as Keke Rosberg, is moving up into contention. Fabi in fourth or fifth place.
Nigel Mansell has moved up to 9th place, and Fabi, of course, had a very good practice. He was fourth fastest. Fabi is 29, he's from Milan, and of course he's been commuting to and from the Atlantic because he's been driving the American Championship Racing Series in the Indianapolis cars. He decided it's not the travelling that's been getting him down, but it takes more than 2 practice sessions to get used to a Grand Prix car again. So Fabi, who's had only 2 finishes this season, he was fourth in Detroit, has decided to concentrate on Grand Prix racing, and I'm sure he can become one of the very good Italians indeed. Certainly the Brabham team has got faith in him, but at the moment their faith is pinned on this man, Nelson Piquet, the 31-year-old Brazilian, reigning world champion, been world champion twice, coming round now to complete the 12th lap, still in the lead from Alain Prost, hounding him in the McLaren, which really has been the star of this season. 3 wins for Lauda, 3 for Prost, and bad news for British fans, Jonathan Palmer has just gone into the pits in front of us. Last year there were 10 engine blow-ups in this. As I said earlier, this is an exceptionally fast track. The average well over 130 miles an hour, placing tremendous strain on the engines. And this is probably, James, the biggest turbo count we've ever had. 25 of the cars are turbo in this race, and they're proving it quite fickle. And Rosberg is out. Rosberg has joined the casualties.
Yes, we just know that he's missing. We don't really know what's happened to him, but he certainly hasn't come by, and so that's a great shame because he was really flying. I would hazard a guess, without the benefit of working a stopwatch, I would have hazarded a guess that Rosberg was the quickest man on the track at the time that he went out. So a great shame for the Williams team, whose fortunes haven't been great this year, and things were looking pretty good for. him today. I think it's a breakdown for Rosberg. He has not reappeared at the pits yet.
And the order now: Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, Paddy, Tambay, Arnoux and Mansell, who has now climbed up to 8th position. Nigel Mansell is in 8th position.
Yes, and I had a bit of a chat with Nigel Mansell before the race, and he was planning, because of the tyre problem, to take it fairly steadily in the early part. The tyre problem of overheating them and then going off, as the expression goes, and then once he'd got a few laps under his belt, the car gets a bit lighter, there's less fuel in it, and the tyres have worn a bit, so therefore they build up less heat. And he looks as if he's driving very much to his game plan, because he didn't really make a move at the opening laps, and now he's coming through quite smartly.
Yes, Nelson Piquet still in the lead. Lap 14 for the leaders of this 44-lap race. Piquet, Prost and Lauda, Warwick, Paddy Tambay, Arnoux and Mansell. And certainly Piquet, who had a wretched start to the season, didn't do anything until we crossed to North America, when he won the Canadian Grand Prix despite a badly run season, new design of the car. Then he won in Detroit. 2 wins, bad luck at Brands Hatch, as we all saw. That race for a time seemed to be a superb battle between 2 of the best drivers in Grand Prix racing.
Yes, battle is really joined here. There seems to be very little to choose between Piquet and Prost, with the one exception that I suspect that the Brabham of Piquet has a little bit of an edge in a straight line, which means that it's very difficult for Alain Prost to get alongside and get past Nelson Piquet. But should the order reverse, Piquet, if he can get himself right up behind Prost as they go into a straight, can come past. As the caption tells you, is Joe Gartner of Austria, who has not been excitingly fast. But it does mean that Piquet's got a bit of an edge. They seem evenly matched, and both drivers are intending, as are pretty well all of the drivers in the race, to go the full distance without a tyre change. Tyre changes were a thing that came in when people were stopping for fuel, because it doesn't really take you longer. Oh, and I see Keke Rosberg walking rather dejectedly along the pit road now from our commentary position, so he's obviously parked his car elsewhere, and he's back.
And one car is in the pits. It is one of the Astellas, and it's on fire, but they put it out in the pits. I think that well could have been the unfortunate Mr. Gartner. Fire bellowing over the far end of the pits there, but the driver all right. On the attrition rate, we are only on lap 15 of this 44-lap race, and we already have lost Senna, Sura, De Angelis, Lafitte. We think we've lost Palmer, Rosberg and Gartner. A race of attrition, but there doesn't seem to be a beat missing in these 2 cars in the front. Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, and Alboreto is back in the pits in front of us, so he's out of contention. But Piquet and Prost streaks ahead of the rest of the field. Lauda now in 3rd position, ahead of Derek Warwick.
Yes, Lauda is about 8 seconds down on his teammate Alain Prost, who of course is still stalking Nelson Piquet. This will mean a bit more, according to the caption here, more like 10 seconds down. And Lauda will in fact be very unhappy with that. He's had a clear run. He's making no impression on the 2 leaders, and he of course will be very keen to establish himself over his teammates. But the good thing is that the 3 favourites, or certainly in my opinion, for the championship are out there in 1st, 2nd and 3rd places. So it's a very good World Championship race. We're seeing the top men fighting, and in fact Nelson Piquet for the first time has put a little bit of air between himself and Alain Prost, and I don't know quite as yet whether that means Prost's having any trouble or whether he just had a bad lap, but Piquet has opened a little bit of a gap, and that is the first time we've seen any difference in performance during this race.
Yes, 0.7 seconds between them at the end of lap 14. The leaders now on lap 16. Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, Paddy and Tambay, and Nigel Mansell is now 8th, just behind Arnoux. suppose I disagree with you a little on the championship favourite. Elio De Angelis has 26.5 points. He started by leading this race. He's only 8 points behind. He had this amazing record of finishing every one of the 10 races, 9 of them in the points. But now on this race, the 11th round of this year's 16-race championship, De Angelis in the pit after a fiery turbo incident. And that means the championship, I suppose, is Prost and Lauda. Don't forget Arnoux. Arnoux is 7th, and he's 4th in the championship with 23.5 points. But the Ferrari has been disappointing this season, apart from Belgium, hasn't it, James?
Yes, it certainly has. They just don't seem to be able to have got it together with their chassis, and they have also had, at times, a little bit of a disadvantage being on Goodyear tyres, although that's certainly no fault of Goodyear's. They've been trying very hard, and as I say, they seem to be doing a lot better today than they have been for a while, but it's been a very disappointing year for Ferrari.
Well, a disappointing day today for the Williams Honda team. Lafitte had a turbo problem, and we now find that Rosberg's problem was electric after an electric drive from 19th right into contention. Not a good day for Williams Honda, and they've really had problems first with the chassis, and now they seem to have got the chassis ready. The engine isn't really doing what they expect of it. So Rosberg out of contention for this race and possibly for this year's championship with only 20 points.
Just going back to Ferrari's problems, they did a very odd thing a couple of years ago. They wanted to come to English technology, so they appointed an English designer, Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, who had previously been with Hesketh, Frank Williams, and then Walter Wolf Racing. And the odd thing is, out of the so-called top designers, they hired the one guy who never really designed a race-winning car. Okay, his cars have won 1 or 2 Grand Prix, but by default, rather than by the fact that the car was the best. So quite why, when they decided on picking English technology, British technology, that they should pick the one guy who couldn't design a winning car seemed rather odd. And this, I think possibly this could be in some way connected with their lack of form this year.
Piquet, as you see from the caption, is pulling out a handsome lead over Prost, 3.3 seconds. There are 9 cars out of this race already. We're actually on lap 17 the leaders. I mean, Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, Sadie, Tambay, Arnoux, and Nigel Mansell in 8th position, and who would bet against him finishing in the points? Just to list the casualties for you. Ayrton Senna, who we saw drop out when something seemed to go wrong with his phone, and Sura, who had problems from the start, De Angelis, who led, and walking back there, I was right, Giancarlo Ginzani is out of the race. So Senna, Sura, De Angelis, Lafitte, Ginzana, Palmer, Rosberg, Gartner and Alboreto, all out of this German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. And Patrese now pulling into the pit. James, this really is taking its toll, isn't it?
Yes, it's a great pity, but the fact of the matter is we do expect a fairly high mechanical failure rate at Hockenheim. The circuit is very hard on the cars. They're on full power for a higher percentage time than is normal at an average Grand Prix track. It's a very fast circuit, of course. And then they have quite a twisty section in the stadium, which gives them pretty hard time to the transmission and those sort of components. But the real problem is mostly engines. They run on full power for so long that the turbos and things start to get hotter than usual, and reliability historically is always bad here at Hockenheim. And of course, it's quite warm today, which doesn't help.
So we're on lap 18 of the 44-lap German Grand Prix, and Nelson Piquet nearly 4 seconds in the lead of Alain Prost in the McLaren. The Brabham, as we said, did exceptionally well in North America. They have what they call an A-spec, which is large radiators. They experimented when they came back to Europe with a different radiator setup. It didn't work, so they've gone back to a winning formula. They have, of course, in Gordon Murray, one of the finest engineers in motor racing. And as James often says, this car has got such a small frontal area, mainly because the 4-cylinder BMW engine only has 1 turbo, so it is possible to build a neater car. It really has has proved to be one of the fastest cars, and here you've not only got to be fast down the straight, but the stadium presents real problems with downforce, doesn't it, James?
That's right. This is about the first time this year that the teams have not been running with maximum quantity of wing. They're fighting a little bit for straight line speed here. So McLaren's, for instance, have taken off a little bit of wing, which reduces the drag a bit, but of course reduces the grip in the twisty stadium section. Now up front we've got a real battle on, because Piquet will be driving now absolutely on the limit, trying to consolidate that little lead he's got and open it up, and at the same time, of course, Prost himself will be driving on the absolute limit, because this is the critical part of the race for these two, and of course, Lauda is still in a very threatening position behind them, not losing any ground, and ready to move in if anything goes wrong for these two leaders.
Yes, 9 points will be very, very welcome indeed for Nelson Piquet. It would give him 27 points. Prost, of course, if he stays where he is, would have 40 points. But there are 5 races to go after this one. We're going to go to Austria, we're going to Holland, we're going to Italy, we're coming back to Germany to Nürburgring, and then, of course, we're talking about a brand new race at Estoril to end the season. And I certainly think that this championship could go right to the end, just as it did last year. But Nelson Piquet not out of contention now, and Nigel Mansell, out of your picture, as indeed is every car at the moment, is now 7th. He has just taken Rene Arnoux, so Nigel Mansell is 7th, moving up very well after a problem in practice. Firstly, he couldn't get any power from his car on the first day. Yesterday, in the few minutes left, he was walked, but he was happy with the car. We had dinner with him last night. He was in riotous form. He felt everything was going well. This is the sort of circuit he likes. He was hoping it wouldn't rain, because there's nowhere worse than Hockenheim in the rain. The rain goes up off these tyres and comes straight down into the faces, the visors of the drivers, and it's really impossible when you're a long way back on the grid, which of course Nigel was. He was on the 8th row, but now he's lying 7th. Lauda, as we've said, the man in your picture, only qualified on the 4th row. The tyres they have now for qualifying these Michelin tyres only give you 1 fast lap. Lauda went out trying to warm them up, slipped in the stadium, as we say, damaged the nose of his car and his pride. And there is Nigel Mansell, having practiced after Rene Arnoux. Mansell has fought up into 7th place, and his teammate is out of the race, but Mansell wants to preserve the record of Lotus scoring points in every race but one. Mansell, who of course has led 2 races this season. He led at Monaco, but very briefly, but then in Detroit he had a really great race, earned all the plaudits of the American crowd when he 2 corners in the end, he nudged the car, it stopped, he tried to push it over the line. That's how tired he was at 103 degrees. And there you see the 1 Tyrrell in the race, the Systime Tyrrell, Stefan Johansson, the young Swede, the only driver because of Thakwil being banned, and Johansson is at the moment lying at 13th. Tyrrell, of course, controversially involved in the row. Did they add ballast, or they have something strange in their fuel? They're being allowed to race, but not score points until the appeal is heard later. But here on the racetrack, Stefan Johansson, who many people, not least to my lap charter Mike Dutton, feels is one of the most underrated men in the sport, really deserving a first-class car, doing a good job for Systime Tyrrell. The man you see being passed there, first by Piquet and then by Prost, is Manfred Winkelhock, driving for the ATS team, who must really be in the football class for managers. They came with a new manager here today, Colin Seeley, a former partner of Bernie Eccleston of Brum. He resigned yesterday, so not a long management career, and Winkelhock really isn't getting the support from the team that he needs. Mansell is now closing on Tambay, we're told, for 6th place, but still in the lead. After 20 laps completed, Nelson Piquet from Alain Prost. James.
Well, I'm only eyeballing my wristwatch, but I just eyeballed the gap between Piquet and Niki Lauda, and I think Niki Lauda is closing very slightly on Piquet. He's certainly closing a bit on Alain Prost, who's dropped back a bit. So it's pretty slow progress with the gap, but that could bring us to a very exciting conclusion. Lauda I had just under 10 seconds behind Piquet, as I say, not an accurate timing, only eyeballing the wristwatch.
Your eyeballing was correct, James. It was over 10. It's now 9.3. As we're told, there are 23 laps to go. We make it. There's confusion here about whether this is going to be 45 laps or 44. We're reliably informed it's supposed to be 44. What will concern Piquet, he's now on lap 21 and he's well in the lead. He's got a 3.38 second lead over Alain Prost. But Niki Lauda, as you so rightly say, James, is closing. Not so much worried, I should think, about Piquet, but even more about Alain Prost. He doesn't want Prost to get away again, does he?
That's absolutely right. I think Piquet would as soon as see himself win and Lauda second and Prost pick up the extra couple of points. But bear in mind, we're not yet at half distance. We've got still around about 100 miles to go in this 185 plus mile race. So there's a lot of time to happen, and one of the big problems, big worries for the drivers who are currently out there is the reliability, mechanical problems that this circuit presents. We've seen an exceptionally high failure rate so far, and I think Alain Prost is a little bit closer to Piquet this time. In fact, I think Piquet might be slowing down, or is he? Prost seems to be close to him. I know the picture foreshortens the gap a bit, but you will see Lauda is now visibly closer to the pair of them, and I think Piquet is struggling.
Yes, James, without any doubt. Prost is closing on Piquet. We're on lap 22 of this German Grand Prix. Lauda, you see there on your picture why Lauda caught up, but up 133 mile an hour lap. Not quite as fast as 142 for pole position, but certainly an improvement on anything we've seen before. And the lead has changed exactly as you forecast. Something is wrong with Piquet. Prost has taken the lead on lap 22 of this Grand Prix. Piquet is second, and Lauda must surely now be chasing Piquet to move up on his teammate, James.
Yes, and that is a great shame for the World Championship, because for those enthusiasts of us who aren't particularly biased one way or the other, I personally just like to see close racing and close results and get plenty of excitement in it. And the ideal result was certainly that we got 9 points for Nelson Piquet today, because he's in trouble. Lauda is now moved up to second place. I don't know whether Piquet will be able to keep going. We can't see anything obviously wrong with his car, but Niki Lauda is also closing in on Alain Prost, and that, of course, if he can get past him and win this race, that will open up the championship to a certain extent, but it will only make it into a battle probably between the two McLarens, because Piquet is beginning to run out of races, although he's got his good circuits to come.
Well, in this Olympic week, let's be a bit jingoistic as well. If poor old Nelson Piquet has got the problems, and we saw him shaking his head in the cockpit there, that means that Derek Warwick will move up to third place, and Nigel Mansell should move into the points. But at the moment, on the road, we actually have the battle for the World Championship. In your picture, just leaving your picture, Alain Prost, who is leading the race and has 34.5 points, and behind him, there you see them, Niki Lauda with 33 points, and poor old Piquet, obviously some problems, could in fact be gearbox.
Yes, Nelson Piquet, we thought might have trouble. He was, but he didn't come into the pits this time. And I had a listen to his engine as he went past the pits, and whilst it didn't sound brilliant to me, it wasn't obviously misfiring. So it still remains to be seen what Piquet's problem is. But he's dropped back an awful lot. He's lost something like 10 seconds in a lap. So whatever it is, this mechanics, the Brabham team, are out there sitting on the set of tyres for Nelson. And now we see the action replay of Nelson Piquet, who's slowed considerably, and Niki, he makes room, in fact, quite rightly, because he's in trouble. He can't fend Lauda off, and he lets Lauda go by, as an experienced and intelligent driver does. And there's Niki Lauda using every inch of the road. He's right out on the outside, and right out again, swings across the apex of the corner, and Niki, as usual with his experience, is race settle down before he's really put it into top gear. Now, this is sensible tactics because the cars are at their most vulnerable, and Derek Warwick has moved into third place. He's got past the ailing Brabham of Nelson Piquet, but as I was saying, it's good tactics for finishing races not to go too hard in the early part of the race, and Nelson Piquet's now slowed almost to a halt. He's on the Sachs curve in the stadium, but he looks as if he's doubtful to get even as far as the pit. No, I think he'll make it now. He's in close to just as the pit, but he's obviously coming in. So, no, as I was saying about Lauda, they take it easy, the experienced drivers, in the early part of the race, because the cars, at that point, they start with 220 litres of fuel. They're very heavy, and therefore they are more mechanically fragile at that stage, and the tyres, of course, are dealing with a heavier car. And Piquet is now in the pits. There is Nelson Piquet in the pits. He's kept his engine running, so it looks for his tyres, but if his tyres, they went off awfully suddenly, and unless he actually blistered one or something, we can't see the ones that have come off. So it wasn't tyres. Mechanics do that as a routine, just because you're better off on a new set anyway, so irrespective of what's wrong, they change the tyres if they can. But Nelson's out of the car, they're pushing it away. There he goes into the garage, and what a great shame for Nelson. And it looks now as if the feat of winning the World Championship 2 years running, well, he looked happy enough, and that is fair enough with drivers, because when you're a man of Nelson's experience, you lead a Grand Prix, as long as the car holds up, that's all you can do. He knows that he's with a very good team, and he takes it all philosophically. He's satisfied with the job that he's done today. And there goes Alain Prost, just lapping a back marker, who made room for him. But Nelson Piquet, of course, been trying to emulate, as have many people, Jack Brabham's feat in 1959 and 60 of winning the World Championship twice in succession. And not even the great Jackie Stewart was able to do that. You need luck as well as skill, and to win any World Championship, and to get the sort of little bits of luck working positively for you for two full seasons on the trot has been proved totally elusive since for over 20 years.
And so, on lap 25 of this German Grand Prix, Alain Prost leads his teammate Niki Lauda by 4 seconds. Third is Britain's Derek Warwick in the Renault. Fourth is Theo Fabi in the only Brabham in the race now. Fifth is Patrick Tambay, so Renault having a very good day indeed, and Nigel Mansell is sixth. The retirements have been unbelievable. We'll go to those after you, James. You have something else to say?
Yes, I just ascertained that Nelson's problem was the gearbox. So Nelson Piquet goes out with gearbox trouble, and as I said before, it's a great shame.
Well, those of you who've just joined us and are wondering how many people are still in this race while we're looking at the same cars, we've had 11 dropouts. Senna, Schurer, De Angelis, Lafitte, Palmer, Rosberg, Gartner, Alboreto, Ginzani, Patrese, and now Piquet. And Mansell, looking at my stopwatch, is now only 1.6 seconds behind Tambay, fighting for 5th place. And of course there are now 3 Renault engines in the top 6. Not a bad day for Renault. I suppose the question is, can their gearboxes last? That's been their problem this season.
Well, the gap is coming slowly but inexorably down between the two Marlboro McLarens, and it's now just again by eyeballing something around 3 seconds. So Niki has been pulling just recently, best part of a second a lap on teammate Alain Prost.
Yes, really going for it. There's no doubt at all. Niki Lauda, as you probably saw at Brands Hatch, became the most successful driver points-wise in the history of the sport. He passed Jackie Stewart's record, but that didn't concern him at all. It wasn't the fact that he's now got 367.5 points. It's the fact he's got 33 points this season, and that's only 1.5 points behind the man who is leading him as he comes to take a back marker into the chicane. So an all Marlboro McLaren race at the moment, and all credit to Ron Dennis, a former mechanic who came to take over what was a very ailing McLaren team at that time. He was the man who with John Barnard, started to revive the fortunes, worked with Mansur Auger to make sure they got the Tag Porsche engine. They had quite a say in the way it was going to be designed. And the man who weekly was on the phone to this man, Niki Lauda, to say, why don't you come and give it a go, come and test the car. Very few drivers, in fact, I can't think of any others, have really made a superb comeback. We've seen Alan Jones try, we've seen Jackie Hill try. But Lauda, who'd given up because he didn't like racing anymore, suddenly got the urge again, and my word, he could become world champion for the third time this season. And I know that would please you, James, because you were great friends as well as great rivals.
Yes, indeed, and Nicky's ability and also his motivation and competitiveness now has certainly, he would deserve that. Gap seesawing about a little bit, now over 4 seconds again, so we'll have to keep a careful eye on that to make sure that Niki Lauda's progress has not been temporarily halted.
I think we have to go back to 1978 with Andretti and Peterson to find a season when there was such domination by 1 mark. That, of course, was the first round effect car, the late Colin Chapman's brainchild. But the difference that season was that Andretti was going to be champion. Peterson had agreed to be a number 2. Ron Dennis has said quite categorically that these 2 men will race for the championship until one of them has absolutely no hope of winning it, and then, of course, they could be team ordered. He said he won't have to give them. These 2 drivers are too intelligent to need them, but certainly they're thrilling this German crowd here now. First Prost, second Lauda, third Warwick, fourth Fabi, fifth Tambay, sixth Mansell, and seventh Arnoux. And I think, although we've lost Nelson Piquet, we ought to have a word again about Teo Fabi. James, as you know, I was sliding that. As you know, he's been trying to commute to both sides of the Atlantic. It was perhaps a surprise choice. People thought that Bernie Ecclestone signed him because his sponsor said they had to have an Italian. But it must be an Italian he's been pleased with by the way he started to improve halfway through the season.
Yes, absolutely right. He's suddenly seemed to get the hang of Formula One a bit more. He'd already made a pretty big name for himself in the States, getting the pole at Indianapolis last year and doing some very good work in American oval track racing with their very powerful cars that are actually faster and more powerful than Formula One cars. But the battle is really on up front now. The 2, there you see the difference, 4.3 seconds approximately, and both drivers very much on the limit. And as you were saying, there is in fact, Barry, as you're right, there's a big difference between the 1978 Lotus domination. The first and rather pleasing one is that the McLarens have had to work very hard for their dominance this year. In 78, Lotus, I mean, to be fair, had a car that a monkey could have driven and won the championship in, and it was rather a shame that they then put the orders in, and particularly made the quicker driver number 2 and didn't allow him to race and win the championship, which was a bit lucky for Andretti. But he'd earned that position by doing a lot of hard work in testing for Lotus. But had they been racing, one wouldn't really have given him a cat-in-hell's chance against a driver with the speed and accomplishment of Ronnie Peterson. Not these 2, though. Prost and Lauda, they are out there battling head-to-head, and a proper thing it is too. And in fact, Ron Dennis, you said, has not attempted to place any orders on them, but I think, in fairness to them, he wouldn't be able to.
We see that René Arnoux has come into the pits. He was lying 7th, and Nigel Mansell is now only 100 yards behind Tambay in 5th and 6th position. This is the view from the... Oh, Arnoux has rushed out again, probably a tyre stop. Some teams have decided to go on top of tyres. But the interesting thing about the McLarens we're seeing in our picture is their chassis is so good that they seem to have much less tyre wear, James, than any of the other teams. They seem, when it's necessary to go out on softer tyres, and the whole package of chassis, of tyres, of engines, and let's face it, drivers, seems to be outstanding.
Yes, well, that's one of the symptoms of a good chassis, and that it's because the suspension setup makes the whole of the footprint of the tires, we call it. That is, of course, the bit of the tire that sits flat on the road, as it makes the whole footprint work better. It spreads the load, and therefore the tires don't wear so much, and the heat that comes into the tire comes in more evenly. And it certainly is a great credit to John Barnard, who came to McLaren's with Ron Dennis, and was brought there by Ron Dennis to design their chassis, and he has done a marvellous job. And this is Teo Fabi. We see, you don't see him, but he's coming into the pit, and well, they're ready with tyres for him. Whether he's got any other problems or not, we don't know. We can't tell from here. But there he is with Brabham mechanics have traditionally been the quickest of the tyre changes, but of course, oh no, and Fabi is getting out of the car, so whatever his problem is, it looks terminal. No, that's Fabi out of the car and out of the race, and a pity, his best Grand Prix drive to date. So, well done, Fabi.
Yeah, well, he was fourth in Detroit, James, but here I thought he was really conquering this circuit. That was a bit lucky. I agree with you that he was really going well, carrying the Brabham flag, but he's obviously got a problem that no one's rushing about, and that means that Nigel Mansell will almost certainly move up another place, which will make him fifth, even if he doesn't manage to pass Tambay. And we have to tell you, we're not being shown any of it, but Mansell is having a tremendous chase after Tambay. Renault engine cars, both of them won the Renault chassis, won the Lotus chassis, and Mansell's really doing himself proud today. And let us remind ourselves that Derek Warwick is third, and the leaders are on lap 30 of this, hopefully 44-lap race.
Yes, and Lauda is going to have to make a move pretty soon if he's going to win this race. He's beginning to run out of time. He's just under 4 seconds down on Alain Prost.
The leaders on their 30th lap. Two Marlboro McLaren drivers, Alain Prost, who you see coming to your picture now, chasing Winkelhock, who's got a very badly misfiring BMW. He is chased by Niki Lauda, only 4 seconds in it. Derek Warwick in third position. We've just lost Fabi, which means that Tambay is fourth, Nigel Mansell is fifth, and sixth will probably be Eddie Cheever in the Alfa.
It's very interesting. You see the haze of the heat haze that comes out above these turbocharged cars. They're producing so much power these days from the engine that, of course, for every horsepower you produce a certain amount of heat, and so there's a lot of heat to be dissipated, and it is a big technical problem for the designers of these cars to get enough cooling to all the right bits and pieces and parts of the engine. The turbo has to run cool enough, and of course, in fact, I think the top engines now, the top teams for the best engines are running something like, near 800 and 700 horsepower in race trim, which on 220 litres of fuel is a restriction like that is really something.
While we're talking about fuel, there was a very important meeting of all the team at bosses yesterday. Everyone has become quite alarmed by the escalating speeds of these cars. The turbo engines have led to a whole new fuel technology, special fuels for these cars. Each team has its own special fuel tweak. But in a bid to try and slow down the cars, they're talking about a standard 98 octane fuel, similar to what the Lotus uses next year, provided by just one maker to avoid cheating. That means, according to my reckoning, that someone is going to have to make 750,000 litres of fuel for all the practicing, the testing, the dynos, etc. And there is Cheever, who is going to move up into the points in the Alfa. So Patrese and Cheever both out. Eddie Cheever, a most luckless lead. He's out, so the number of casualties now are 13. Eddie Cheever, the unlucky 13th retirement. Only 13 cars left on the track, and we are now on lap 31. The leaders are on 31. The leader, of course, still Alain Prost, and Niki Lauda second.
And those couple of back markers that they passed a lap and a half ago, I think helped Alain Prost a little bit, because the gap actually increased by a second on that lap, and Prost now has over 5 seconds on Lauda. It doesn't quite look that much looking down the straight like that in a foreshortened picture, but We're just getting the gap again, and it's 6 seconds. So is Lauda in a little bit of trouble? Because they were very evenly matched before, and he had a clear lap that time since we last took the gap, and over and about a second more. So it may be that we're getting to the stage of the race now where Tawa could start to be a factor in performance, and Lauda has, in the middle part of the race, been driving the car absolutely on the full limit, and it could just be that he's put a little bit too much heat and effort into the tyres.
Yes, James, because Lauda really has been giving it a bit of boot. He's been lowering the lap record again and again. I think he's come up on the screen 3 times in the lap record. Desperately anxious, of course, not to let his teammate increase his 1.5 point lead in the championship by another 3. That looks as if Winkelhock at last is about to retire. He really wanted to do well in front of his home crowd. Because Beloff is away racing in Canada, Winkelhock the only German in the race, and his BMW engine seems to have expired. That will mean there will have been 14 retirements, and we are on lap 32 of this 44-lap race. I wonder how many cars will survive to the end, but I certainly hope that Prost and Lauda, Prost in your picture now, stay, because they're giving us a duel between 2 great drivers, evenly matched machinery. And Alain Prost has now set the fastest lap, 1 minute 53, 133 miles an hour. So this circuit could well, certainly if the weather's not good at Österreichring, become the fastest race on the calendar this season, although Silverstone should lay claims next year. Alain Prost, the little Frenchman who came so close to the championship last year. He started racing with McLaren, he left them for Renault, came back to them in a shot move that turned the whole championship team upside down. And James, what was the lead the last time?
It was 6 and a bit seconds, and it's now 7 seconds Alain Prost had. And we had a close-up halfway around the last lap of Lauda, and his car did look to be a little bit skittish, so I suspect that it's tyre problems that Nicky's had, and in fact they've got the McLaren pit, I'm sitting right opposite, they've got tyres out, and but I would imagine that Nicky now is in a pretty secure second place. If he's in a tyre trouble, will cool it and settle for second place, which is the intelligent thing to do, and something that Niki Lauda is not short of.
Yes, well, he must know from his pit crew that he's in fact 28 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick, who is in 3rd place. So unless Lauda makes a real mistake in a pit stop, he's forced to come in for tyres, and Warwick is going to have to settle for 3rd at the moment. And so the positions at the moment on lap 33 of this 44-lap race: Alain Prost in the lead in the Marlboro McLaren. 2nd, his teammate Niki Lauda. 3rd, Derek Warwick in the Renault. 4th, Warwick's teammate Tambay. 5th, Nigel Mansell in the John Player Special. And 6th, René Arnoux. So we're now on lap 33 of this 44-lap race. Alain Prost aiming to become, as Murray Walker's told you many a time and off, the first Frenchman ever to win the World Championship. And let's face it, the French invented the World Grand Prix. They invented the sport. Definitely keen to do it. Thought he would do it with Renault. Really came under tremendous pressure from the French press and the French public and French politics. Tremendously happy at McLaren, despite the fact he's probably racing against the best teammate anybody could ever wish for, certainly the most skilled. And what is his lead at the moment, James?
It's now 7.3 seconds. It only increased by a couple of tenths on that lap. And the thing that I noticed then is that Prost is still trying very hard indeed. Now, if there is a bit of a tyre problem, and Niki can keep things smooth and keep on there by trying very hard and sliding the car about, Prost could put himself into the same trouble that slowed Niki. And this is a possibility. It's clearly a speculative theory. I think quite honestly, if Alain Prost keeps his cool and drives intelligently and has no actual mechanical problems, then he should win the race. But we've seen trouble with Prost. Only 12 laps to go now, in that he has shown in the past a bit of a tendency to panic under pressure, although it needs quite a lot of pressure to do that. He threw away the Dallas Grand Prix when leading it comfortably with 3/4 of the race gone, and in a very important point psychologically for him, because he could have really sewn the championship up by taking 9 points there. And he did the same thing last year at Zandvoort when he tangled with Piquet in the manoeuvre that was uncharacteristic for him. And he's pushed the lead out again a little bit. He's now over 8 seconds, 8.7 seconds ahead of Nicky. So I think the intelligent thing for Prost now would be to try and just maintain that gap and not increase it a lot. And there's Manfred Winkelhock going out of the pits with a new set of tyres on, but he's had a pretty torrid afternoon with misfires and various things going wrong. And he's right out of contention. He's been lapped several times already.
And so we're on lap 35 of this 44-lap German Grand Prix, and the order is first Prost, second Lauda, third Warwick, fourth Tambay, fifth Nigel Mansell, sixth Arnoux after that very quick tyre stop. And they are the only drivers on the same lap. André de Cesaris is a lap behind, and his teammate François Hainaut is really chasing him. Then Stefan Johansson is ninth in the fifth time Tyrrell. And if I'm not mistaken, Mansell has taken Tambay. Johansson been into the pits. There is Mansell, sweeping past ahead of Tambay. So Nigel Mansell has moved up to 4th place on the 34th lap of this 44-lap race. His teammate led at the start, and now Mansell has moved up to one of his best positions of the season. Nigel has not had the greatest season, while his teammates had amazing reliability. Nigel seems to have had all sorts of problems. He's had 3 finishes only. He was third at San Marino. He had pole at Dallas, of course. He led Detroit, he led Monaco. But now he's lying 4th, and he splits the Renaults of Warwick and Tambay. Prost, Lauda, Warwick, Mansell, Tambay, Arnoux. And James, Prost goes relentlessly on.
Yes, I think he's pretty well got this sewn up now. He only has to keep his head, drive sensibly. He's now nearly 9 seconds in front of Nicky, and not go at it like a bull in a china shop. I'm sure he won't, because the pressure is now very much off him. He's, of course, got to look after the car mechanically, and that's a situation pretty much beyond his control. If the car wants to break down, it will. But McLaren's have done a very good job of preparation this season, and there's no reason to suppose that he will run into trouble. So Alain Prost looking very much in command of a race that has been a very hard one for him up at the front, with Piquet leading for quite a while before he fell back with gearbox problems, subsequently to retire, and then Lauda bringing him under pressure, but from half distance to about 3/4 distance. But Lauda was unable to sustain the charge. I think his car probably a little bit of tire trouble because of the very hard work he put into them. And it's Prost now very much in command.
Well, James, it appears that it's not Lauda going so much more slowly, but actually Prost going quickly, because although Lauda is now 8 seconds behind Prost, he's increased his lead on Derek Warwick in 3rd place. Derek Warwick is now 31 seconds behind him. He's got a comfortable lead over Nigel Mansell, a lead of 18 seconds. Tambay is 5th, and Arnoux is 6th. And as we said, Stefan Johansson, who's 2 laps behind in the 1 Tyrrell, is 9th, and this gives us a chance to give best wishes to Martin Brundle, who we know is sitting watching us at home, and the good news for his fans is that he's out of hospital. And we also heard this morning that Johnny Cecotto, who we saw hurt at Brands Hatch, is making a good recovery, and they think he'll be out of the Munich hospital within 2 weeks. And that will be good news for Barry Sheene, his friend at Silverstone, who flew back to visit him and in fact recommended his surgeon to help Cecotto. Now that leads us to another point. about this meeting yesterday when first they talked about fuel and having 98 octane. They've also decided that they should have new rules to strengthen the front of the car to give more protection, and that of course follows the accidents first to Brundle and then to Johnny Cecotto, although both were full frontal impacts, and it's going to be very hard to make a car that can cope safely with that sort of impact, isn't it, James?
That's right. There is some doubt amongst the designers that just moving the driver's feet back behind the line of the imaginary front axle will do much to help this problem. I think that the people whose cars aren't strong enough will probably still not be much stronger by moving the driver back a little bit, and because by and large most of the Grand Prix cars are pretty strong in frontal accidents. Most of the really serious injuries are caused by bits and pieces flying about and hitting the driver on the head, which in a single-seater, of course, is sticking out and very vulnerable. And i.e. the front wheel, sometimes you hit side of the corner. And there is Manfred Winkelhock sitting in the pit for the umpteenth time. He's been limping round this Grand Prix, but I suppose it is the German Grand Prix and he is German, that they found it necessary to take time off the race to try and get an interview with him. It's not easy through a helmet and face mask, fireproof face mask that he's wearing there, and all rather irrelevant because, sadly for him, he's never been in contention today anyway.
You see, we are getting this covered by the German TV director. He is their home hero. And if you weren't listening to us before, the team is still managerless. Colin Seeley, the man who we knew in the motorbike world, helped to buy the Brabham team together with Bernie Eccleston, has been their manager for a glorious week and has walked out because, like so many managers before him, he felt that Mr. Gunter Schmidt, who owns the team, he's got rather too strong a personality and his ideas are a little too strong for him. That's a tactful way of putting it, James. So, if Mr. Winkelhock is out, that means that 14 cars have dropped out from the 26 starters. I repeat, the Tyrrell driver Mike Backwell, the New Zealander who's been living in Australia for a long time, didn't get a chance to start. He qualified 27th. Kendall went round to all the team managers and they all agreed he could drive, except one, guess who? Ferrari. So the Tyrrell and Ferrari still enjoying. Only one Tyrrell in the race, but it's young Stefan Johansson, the Swede, and he is ninth. The full order now on lap 38 of this Grand Prix. First, as you can see in your picture, Alan Prost. Second, his teammate Niki Lauda in the second Balmer McLaren. Third, Britain's Derek Warwick. Fourth, Britain's Nigel Mansell. Fifth, Patrick Tambay. Sixth, René Arnoux, but Arnoux is a lap behind. Only 5 of the drivers on the same lap. As we see Niki Lauda coming up to try and lap Arnoux yet again. And hopefully he'll let him through. There's no reason for him not to, James.
No, he will be aware that Lauda's coming, or he should be, because he's already seen Alain Prost go past. And he'll know that once one leader's gone past, there are usually more of them behind. He's experienced enough to be looking in his mirrors and take note, and hopefully he won't get away. The gap now exactly 9 seconds between the two McLarens, but I think Prost will now be pulling it from the front, judging the gap and getting to the line as slowly and carefully as he can without letting Lauda overtake him. And so with 9 seconds in hand and only 5 laps to go, that puts Prost in a pretty almost impregnable position, except from potential of the ever-present possibility of mechanical failure.
I should just explain to our viewers, as James talked about 9 laps ago, and someone else came up with another number, that the captions are usually about 2 laps behind.
So optimal abgestimmten Ersatzwagen fahren musste. Wenn übrigens jetzt Regen fallen würde, meine Damen und Herren, würde das Rennen sofort abgebrochen. Die 75%-Regel besagt, dass ein Rennen wenn einmal 75% der Distanz zurückgelegt sind, abgebrochen werden kann, ohne dass nochmals gestartet wird. Die Punkte werden dann voll zugeteilt, das Resultat also voll gewertet. Wir liegen 6 Runden vor Schluss. 33 Runden wäre die Abbruchdistanz gewesen. Wir haben sie beträchtlich überschritten. Kein Problem. Wenn also jetzt noch ein Platzregen käme, würde das Rennen einfach vorzeitig abgebrochen. Alain Prost wäre dann der klare Sieger. Zwei grundverschiedene Charaktere, die hier in diesem Rennen vorn fahren. Alain Prost, der Junge, der Angreifer, der natürlich seinen ersten Weltmeistertitel sichern will, nachdem er ihn letztes Jahr, damals bei Renault noch, in Extremis verpasste. Niki Lauda, der erfahrene, der inzwischen 35-Jährige, in seinem Comeback in den letzten 2 Jahren gereift, aber der Mann, der neu voll motiviert ist, der natürlich gleichziehen möchte mit Jackie Stewart und Jack Brabham, der seinen 3. WM-Titel holen möchte und in die Galerie der Unsterblichen im Automobilsport eingehen möchte. Lauda hat gezeigt, dass er mit viel Motivation Biss fahren kann, aber die schlechtere Startposition in diesem Rennen hat wohl dazu beigetragen, dass er sich seinen Rückstand gleich in den ersten Runden holte und daneben nie mehr ganz gut machen konnte. Prost fährt fehlerfrei heute, fährt konzentriert, hat offensichtlich nur ein Ziel im Auge, sich diesen Sieg zu holen, den Vorsprung in der Weltmeisterschaft zu vergrößern und klarzustellen, dass er der Mann bei McLaren sei, der sich diesen Titel holen wird. Aber Lauda wird sich natürlich auch mit diesem 2. Platz nicht geschlagen geben. Lauda hat Zeit noch, es kommen die weiteren Rennen, die Situation kann schnell ändern und vor allem Lauda hat, wie wir alle wissen, eiserne Nerven und er hat die Motivation, diesen Kampf längst noch nicht aufzugeben. 4 Runden noch zu fahren, 4 von 45 Runden, von 44 eigentlich in diesem großen Preis von Deutschland. Dann ist ein weiterer McLaren Doppelsieg Tatsache. Dann ist aber auch ein Debakel Tatsache, dass die meisten Ställe betroffen hat, dass sie miterlebt haben, diese reihenweisen Ausfälle, die sie gesehen haben, diese kaputten Turbolader, diese Getriebeprobleme, diese Elektronikprobleme. Und natürlich heißt jetzt die ganze Spannung, werden diese 2 McLaren durchhalten, werden sie weiterfahren wie die Uhrwerke, wie sie das von Anfang an getan haben, oder werden auch sie in die Probleme hineinkommen. 10 von 26 Wagen noch im Rennen. Rottengatter, Hub Rottengatter, der Holländer, mit 3 Runden Rückstand in seinem Spirit Heart als 10. Und René Arnoux liegt trotz seines Boxenhalts an 6. Stelle mit einer Runde Rückstand. Arnoux, der, wenn er diesen Platz halten kann, sich noch einen einzigen WM-Punkt aus diesem Rennen sichern wird. Die Frage, die sich die deutschen Fans natürlich stellen, was wäre gewesen, wenn Stefan Bellof hier hätte teilnehmen können? Nun, diese Frage ist natürlich müßig, er ist nicht hier. Nun, vielleicht ein riesiges Unglück war es nicht, denn mit diesem Tyrrell Ford, mit diesem Saugmotorwagen hätte er auf dieser Strecke hier in Hockenheim nicht den Hauch einer Chance gehabt. Die ideale Situation wie in Monte Carlo hätte hier nicht vor.
And bad news from our lap scorer Mike Hewson is that he feels that Nigel Mansell's engine is sounding a bit rough. Nigel Mansell at the moment is in 4th place. He's 16 seconds behind Derek Warwick, and he's only 1.9 seconds ahead of Tambay. So Nigel Mansell might be demoted if, and we hope that Mike Hughes is wrong, his ears didn't deceive him. And the order again is just joiners: 1st Prost, 2nd Lauder, 3rd Warwick, 4th Mansell, 5th Tambay, 6th Arnoux, and then Hainaut, who's beaten his distinguished teammate, De Cesaris. Super performance by Hainaut is 7th. He's ahead of De Cesaris, who is 8th. Stefan Johansson is 9th. Hugh Brockengarter, who is 3 laps behind, is 10th. And those, according to my lap chart, are the only people actually running in the race at the moment. 10 drivers on the track. As the leaders go into lap 42, Alain Prost, the man in your picture. He won in France, Holland and Italy in 1981. He won in South Africa and Brazil in 82. He won in France, Belgium, Britain and Austria in 83. And Brazil, San Marino and Monaco, of course, this year. And he will become the 6th winner of this race since in 1977. After a skirmish in 1970, just once they had the race here at Hockenheim. That was won by the late, very great Jochen Rindt. But they started bringing the Grand Prix back here in 1977. Nürburgring, as you know, was closed after the horrendous Niki Lauda accident. It's a race that James Hunt, my co-commentator, won. And then Niki Lauda came back here the next year and won here in front of an adoring German crowd. And he's been followed in victories by Lafitte, by Piquet, by Tambay and Arnoux, and it looks very likely as it's going to be his teammate Prost today. We were talking earlier about the rough engine Mansell. Tambay is developing even rougher, and I'd be very surprised if Tambay can actually catch Mansell. In fact, he's dropped a long way behind him now. There's now a 10-second gap between Tambay and Mansell. So it looks as British cars will finish 3rd and 4th. If Mansell can keep going. So it will be 1st and 2nd for the TAG Porsche engine, and 3rd and 4th for the 3rd, 4th and 5th for the Renault engine, and then Arnoux's Ferrari. James.
Well, Barry passes the microphone now, and one of the problems we have here, we're sitting in the grandstand right above the start-finish line, and we get so much wild sound. I couldn't hear what he asked me about, but this is one of the worst circuits for us. We spend a lot of time with no real idea of what the other chap's saying, so we have to do a lot of guessing. There is Alain Prost on his way. A very comfy 10 seconds advantage over Niki Lauda. The superiority of the Marlboro McLarens really underlined once again. But as we said earlier, it's not a 1978 type repeat where the Lotus just had a huge speed advantage and was an infinitely superior car. This is really down to the fine work that the McLaren team have done. The car is probably the best chassis in the business, but only by a small amount. But what's really made the big difference between them and the other teams this year has been the preparation of the cars and their terrific reliability. They've always been quick, but you need to be more than quick in motor racing to win. You've got to finish, and this they've done, and that's why they are now, barring any accidents over the last couple of laps today, on their way to yet another 1-2 and to put themselves really almost out of reach at the head of the championship.
Yes, so Alain Prost is now on the last lap of this German Grand Prix. He's got something like 2.5 miles to go to win his 4th Grand Prix of the season, the 13th of his career, and to stretch his lead to 4.5 points ahead of his teammate Niki Lauda in the 2nd Marlboro McLaren. Not an exciting race. First we lost Elio De Angelis, who was the early leader, with all sorts of problems with his turbo. Then Nelson Piquet also with an engine problem. And from that moment on, the Prost has really been in trouble. Lauda had a real go at the lap record again and again. But this man in car number 7, 29-year-old Alain Prost, on his way to his 4th victory of the season, making up for that disappointment of Brands Hatch when for a time he thought he'd win, and Lauda a little closer in the picture, James.
Yes, a good bit closer, but I'm sure that is Alain Prost just easing up, not taking any risks of running out of petrol or anything, taking it as easily as he dares around the last lap. Lauda is actually pulling him in hand and fist, but he's only got 2 corners to go now before the finish line, and Lauda can't do that unless Prost's engine actually stops. He might catch him, and here comes Alain Prost out of the last corner to take the checkered flag, and yet another win with Lauda, making it the perfect result for Northern McLaren.
And third will be Britain's Derek Warwick, and fourth Britain's Nigel Mansell.
Überlegener Doppelsieg, weit und breit niemand. Jetzt kommt Derek Warwick in der Sachskurve, während Information die beiden McLaren ihre Auslaufrunde absolvieren. Eindrücklich, wie dieses Team dieses Rennen dominiert hat und wie alle anderen Teams Opfer der Technik wurden, zurückfielen oder Opfer eines Fahrfehlers wie der junge Brasilianer Ayrton Senna. Wir warten jetzt auf Mansell. Derek Warwick ist vorbei. Jetzt kommt Nigel Mansell, der vierte, auch er vorbei. Und Patrick Tambay, der letzte der nicht überrundeten. Und die beiden Sieger inzwischen auf ihrer Auslaufrunde. Jetzt kommt Patrick Tambay wenigstens wieder einmal am Ziel, auch er vorbei, und auch sein Auto tönt nicht mehr überzeugend. Eine Abnutzungsschlacht ohnegleichen, dieser 45. große Preis von Deutschland. Ja, damit haben wir also das folgende Klassement. Erster Alain Prost auf McLaren Tag Porsche, hier eingeblendet. Niki Lauda wird Zweiter auf dem gleichen McLaren mit 3,149 Sekunden Rückstand. Dritter Warwick auf Renault, 36 Sekunden sein Rückstand. Vierter Nigel Mansell auf Lotus, Renault mit 51 Sekunden Rückstand. Fünfter Patrick Tambay auf Renault, 1 Minute 11 zurück. René Arnoux ist als Sechster überrundet. Siebter wird Andrea De Cesaris auf Ligier Renault. Achter François Hinault auf Ligier Renault. Und man darf doch sagen, Renault hat viele Motoren durchgebracht. Neunter Stefan Johansson auf Tyrrell. Er wird vermutlich gar nicht gewertet, weil er ja offensichtlich außer Konkurrenz fährt. Damit wäre neunter Hub Rodengatter mit dem Spirit Honda. Wie sieht es jetzt aus in der Weltmeisterschaft? Deutlichere Führung wieder für Alain Prost, der jetzt bei 43,5 Punkten liegt. Niki Lauda Zweiter mit 39 Punkten. Diese zwei sind praktisch uneinholbar weg jetzt, denn Elio De Angelis bleibt als Dritter auf 26,5 Punkten sitzen. René Arnoux hat als Vierter 24,5, Derek Warwick 23, Keke Rosberg bleibt auf seinen 20. Jetzt sehen Sie das hier eingeblendet. Das ist sicher eine Vorstellung. Der Meister 1984 wird mit einiger Sicherheit Alain Prost oder Niki Lauda heißen. Für die anderen wird das zum unlösbaren Problem. Höchstens Elio De Angelis hätte eine ganz geringe Außenseiterchance, aber das ist kaum denkbar. Ja, nun werden wir bald zur Siegerehrung kommen und Falco Fröhner wird versuchen, mit den beiden Siegern kurz zu sprechen. Er wird sich melden, sobald er soweit ist. Sie sehen dieses Gerangel, das ist keine leichte Aufgabe. Alles stürzt sich auf die beiden Sieger. Und wir gehen inzwischen noch einmal die Liste der auf der Strecke gebliebenen durch. Marc Surer, erste Runde, kein Benzindruck. Dann Ayrton Senna, Unfall in der dritten Runde. Elio De Angelis hatte Feuer- und Turboladerschaden, 7. Runde. Jonathan Palmer, 9. Runde. Keke Rosberg nach glänzenden Aufholjagd in der 12. Runde. Joe Gardner mit Turboladerschaden, 14. Runde. Ghizani in der 15. Patrese in der 16., Alboreto nach 3 Boxenhalten in der 17. Hier kommt jetzt Alain Prost. Nelson Piquet in der 22. mit Getriebeschaden. Piquet, der einer der Leader dieses Rennens war. Dann Theo Fabi in der 28. Eddie Cheever in der 29. Schließlich Manfred Winkelhock in der 36. Runde, nachdem sein Fahrzeug, das kann man schon so sagen, langsam vor sich hinstarb. Auch Thierry Boutsen ist ein Ausfall, über den wir keine weiteren Nachrichten haben. Und jetzt begrüßt Alain Prost Huschke von Hanstein, den Sportpräsidenten des AVD, geht jetzt hinauf auf die Siegertribüne. Jetzt kommt die obligate Umarmung mit Herrn Ballester. Es ist doch interessant, dass sich Prost von Herrn Ballester umarmen ließ, nachdem er von ihm zitiert wurde auf die nächste Sportgerichtssitzung in Paris wegen beleidigender Äußerungen. Fürst Metternich, der Präsident der FIA, der Fédération Internationale Automobile, ist ebenfalls da. Sie sehen ihn mit seinen weißen Haaren. Derek Warwick ist jetzt ebenfalls auf dem Podium, Niki Lauda auch eingetroffen. Sie sind jetzt alle da und Alain Prost erhält seinen Siegerkranz.
Und der drittplatzierte den Ehrenpreis des Präsidenten des Verbandes der Automobilindustrie VDA. Dieser wird überreicht von Dr. Ludwig Fassbender, dem Vorstandsmitglied der
Ein Rennen der Ausfälle, das kann man wohl sagen, aber ein Rennen, das mit einer Eindrücklichkeit ohnegleichen von einem unglaublich starken Team McLaren gewonnen wurde. Einem Team, das hier nun wirklich zeigte, wer augenblicklich, wer in diesem Jahr in der Formel 1 das Sagen hat. Blendende Leistung von Nelson Piquet mit seinem Brabham BMW, aber wirklich kein Rennglück heute für Brabham BMW. Weder Piquet noch Theo Fabi kamen durch. Ja, das ist die Marseillaise für Alain Prost. Und sogar Niki Lauda entblößt sein Haupt. Wahrlich ein seltener Augenblick. Umrahmt also von den Herren Ballester links, Fürst Metternich und Huschke von Hanstein rechts. Die 3 Sieger dieses Rennens: Alain Prost erster, Niki Lauda zweiter, Derek Warwick dritter. Ja, und da gibt es jetzt viel Applaus und dann hoffen wir, dass Falco Fröhner es schaffen wird, noch durchzukommen. Und mit den Fahrern kurz zu sprechen.
Im Auftrag einer großen Industriegruppe, die in Deutschland erdacht und gebaut wurde. Es erklingt nun für das Team von McLaren die Hymne Englands.
Es folgt nun die englische Nationalhymne zu Ehren des Teams McLaren. Das beeindruckt Prost offenbar weniger, doch jetzt nimmt er seine Mütze auch ab. Hier eine totale über die Zuschauerränge in Hockenheim. Derek Warwick, der tapfere Brite, der letztes Jahr seinen Aufstieg erlebte, auf Toulon seine Fähigkeiten bewies und nun bei Renault doch vermehrt in die vorderen Plätze hineinfahren kann. Warwick, ein Mann, der zweifellos demnächst reif sein wird für seinen ersten Grand Prix-Sieg.
Nach den Gewichten der schwerste und der zweitleichteste Fahrer auf den ersten Plätzen.
Ja, nun darf ich mich von den Freunden in der Schweiz verabschieden, die umschalten werden. Ich gebe wieder zurück auf die Schweiz, nach der Schweiz. Ade miteinander. Ja, meine Damen und Herren, wir bleiben noch einen Augenblick hier in Hockenheim, Totale vom Luftschiff aus. Falco Fröhner wird weiterhin versuchen, mit den Siegern zu sprechen. Inzwischen kommt der unvermeidliche Champagner. fürchte, wird Falco Fröhner noch nass werden, wie alle nass werden. Üblicherweise bei dieser Champagnerzeremonie der Sieger. Der Ballester besteigt das Podest wieder. Halten wir zusammen, meine Damen und Herren. Großer Preis von Deutschland, der 45. Ein Rennen der Ausfälle hier in Hockenheim. Ein Rennen der Ausfälle, das klar dominiert wurde durch das Team McLaren, auf eindrückliche Weise dominiert. Und nun hoffen wir, dass Falco Fröhner es schafft. Die Fahrer kommen hinunter.
Pressekonferenz mit den Siegern im Flachshaus stattfinden wird. So, and now, Anthony Marsh, you can go.
Ja, meine Damen und Herren, wir werden jetzt versuchen, zumindest ein wenig noch mit Niki Lauda zu sprechen. Vor allen Dingen die Frage zu klären, von wann er gemerkt hat, dass er wohl kaum noch eine Chance hat, Alain Prost zu holen. Niki Lauda, einen Moment bitte. Von wann dann haben Sie gemerkt, dass Sie wohl gegen Alain heute keine Chance mehr haben und haben Sie dann taktisch gefahren?
Die letzten 10 Runden dann sind wir langsam gefahren.
Sie haben dann nur noch darauf geachtet, dass Sie den zweiten Platz halten.
Richtig, 6 Punkte sind besser wie gar nicht.
Sie haben also keine weiteren Probleme gehabt, es lief alles sehr gut.
Das Auto hatte leicht übersteuert, ich konnte es nicht so voll einsetzen, wie ich wollte.
Alles Gute, Dankeschön. Meine Damen und Herren, der Wagen muss jetzt auf die Ehrenrunde. Wir können hier nicht weiter den Ablauf im Moment stören, werden aber versuchen, nachher noch mit Alain Prost ein Interview zu führen. Ich kann Ihnen das aber nicht versprechen, denn hier ist natürlich jetzt der Teufel los. Zurück zu Rico Steinemann.
Danke, Falco Fröhner. Ich fasse noch einmal zusammen. Renntag hier in Hockenheim, großer Preis von Deutschland, 11. von 16 Weltmeisterschaftsläufen 1984. Sieger Alain Prost auf McLaren-Tag Porsche in einer Stunde, 24 Minuten, 43,210 Sekunden. Zweiter Niki Lauda, 3,149 Sekunden zurück. Dritter Derek Warwick, 36 Sekunden zurück. Vierter Nigel Mansell, 51 Sekunden zurück. Fünfter Patrick Tambe, 1 Minute 11 zurück. Und sechster René Arnoux, eine Runde zurück. Auf den weiteren Plätzen noch klassiert Andrea De Cesaris, François Eno, Stefan Johansson und Hub Rotengatter. Ausfall für Manfred Winkelhock, Ausfall für Marc Surer, Ausfall für Joe Gardner, Niki Lauda als einziger deutschsprachiger Fahrer durchgekommen. Was gibt es zu sagen? McLaren hat dieses Rennen erdrückend dominiert. Wahre Ausfall Oregon bei den anderen Stellen. Mithalten an Nelson Piquet, nachdem Elo De Angelis ganz zu Beginn des Rennens und anfänglich vorliegend mit einem Defekt seine Segel streichen musste. Wir haben weiter erlebt eine eindrückliche Aufholjagd von Ex-Weltmeister Keke Rosberg mit dem Williams Honda, aber es ging ihm nicht besser als den Fahrern reihenweise. Ausfälle über Ausfälle, sodass am Schluss nur 9 von 26 gestarteten Fahrern das Ziel sahen. Meine Damen und Herren, in 14 Tagen findet der nächste Weltmeisterschaftslauf statt. Dann wird die 12. von 16 Runden stattfinden auf dem Österreichring bei Zeltweg. Ich darf mich für heute von Ihnen verabschieden mit dem Hinweis, dass in der Weltmeisterschaft Alain Prost sich konsolidieren kann und auf 43,5 Punkte geht. Niki Lauda Zweiter mit 39 Punkten. Niki Lauda und Alain Prost, sie dürften, das hat sich heute wohl entschieden, diese Weltmeisterschaft unter sich ausmachen. Und so wird man denn heute sagen können, dass ein McLaren-Tag Porsche Weltmeister werden wird. Meine Damen und Herren, das war's aus Hockenheim. Auf Wiedersehen.
Alain Prost in his 4th win here at Hockenheimring. Alain, were you concerned by any other drivers, Nelson Piquet or Elio De Angelis?
Yes, because they were in front of me, but I did a choice of tires that I could not do beginning of the race very quickly, like Niki, and we chose these tires, and we said before the race, okay, we do the race like that, but the first 20 laps we are very gentle with the tires, so I did not want to push very hard, and I did not want to try to catch Nelson and De Angelis, but they had some problems after that, so I had no problem.
So you were just saving your car, waiting to see what happened to them?
Saving the tires, especially the tires.
Now, Nicky started to catch you in one point. You broke the lap record, he broke the lap record, and then you broke the lap record. Were you able to pull that much out of your car and tires that late in the race? I mean, it was only 15 laps to go, and there you are breaking the lap record.
I mean, I was 4 or 5 seconds ahead Nicky, and he tried to push very hard, and I had to push in the same time because I wanted to win absolutely this race. And I tried to push very hard for 4 or 5 laps, and I went from 5 to 10 seconds. And after that, I think Nicky didn't try to push, and I think it was a safe decision for him and for me and for all the team, because like that we had no problems about the fuel consumption, and I think it was a safe decision. It was a very good decision, professional decision for himself.
So you could drive as hard as you wanted towards the end with the fuel, no problem?
Yeah, we can drive as hard as we want, but maybe not until the end. So we have to be careful the last 10 laps. That's why Nicky didn't try to push me hard for the last 10 laps.
And a great competition within the team between the two of you.
It's a great competition, but it's very nice competition. I like to fight with Nicky because he's very honest. We try to do the same choice of tires to be the same at the beginning of the race. The only problem today for me was I had to start with the T car because my race car, the problem is the fuel pump. Otherwise, it's a nice competition with Nicky. We get the same car, and we are in the best team at the moment. It's
well, there again, to start a race with a T car, I mean, that's the training car. It's not your normal car. Yesterday you told us about the confidence in the team. This must, again, prove to you that McLaren is right on top of everything.
Yes, exactly. That proves that it's not exactly a T car, it's a third car. And we can take this car and we have no problem with it. It's always difficult for me because I had very bad luck 2 weeks ago in Brands Hatch. So starting with the car was a big deception for me because my race car was perfect. But I must say that this car was able to win the race anyway. That's good. That proves that McLaren can build 3 very good cars.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
In Olympic terms, I suppose what we have here is a gold, a bronze, and for Nigel a copper. First of all, Alan, tremendous win for you, your 4th victory of the season, stretching your points in the World Championship.
I think it's a good one because I was very unlucky 2 weeks ago in Brands Hatch, and today I had to win the race because it was very important for me to be ahead Nicky because he was catching me the last race, and I had to win today.
Good result for McLaren, 7 victories this season.
Yes, I think it's we have the best car at the moment. I think the championship will be between Nicky and I, and we have already McLaren is already world champion about the constructors point of view. I think we are going to try to fight together with Nicky, but we get the best car, the best engine, the best tires at the moment, so that's why we are winning every Sunday.
And it's probably going to be one of the best championships of all time. Derek, you've heard a very confident Alain Prost saying it's a McLaren benefit. You've moved up to 5th position in the championship, and Renault had 3 engines in the first 5.
Well, it's obviously quite good for us. I mean, for me to give any challenge to McLaren at all, I have to finish. And I finished 3rd. You know, I think we're a little bit slower than the McLarens at the moment, but if we keep working at it, hopefully then we will, you know, get them by the end of the season.
Nigel, for a while it looked as if Lotus were going to get their first victory since a long time ago, Elio in Austria. First of all, what happened to your teammate?
Well, I think basically he was running very quickly. I don't know how much boost he was running, but the engine blew up. But I think in the first 4 laps there's 3 or 4 engines that blew up, and that's why I turned my boost down initially.
So it really was a case of softly. I think there were only 10 finishers, but you had a good battle with Patrick Tambay, didn't you?
Well, yes, I had a battle with a Ferrari with René Arnoux and Patrick. So, you know, coming up from 16th, I was well pleased, and I was catching Derek a little at the end, mainly because he eased off a bit too much, but I was well pleased with the result.
Well, you've heard Alan's forecast. Can anybody stop the McLarens winning the Drivers' Championship as well as the Constructors' Championship?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think the next race at Austria, I think the Goodyear tyres and the JPS car that we have will be even quicker than here because they're all fast corners. There's only 1 chicane there, so the McLaren hopefully won't be as quick there as what it is here.
You think so?
What do you think, Alan?
What I think it's in Zellweg. I think my car is much better than Hockenheim.
But mine's better than both of them, so it's okay.
3 very happy drivers. Thank you for talking to us, and it's going to be a great championship. Thank you, Alan. And so, in Olympic terms, British cars took a gold and a silver here at Hockenheim today, while the English driver Derek Warwick took the bronze. It was a truly dominant performance by the two McLaren cars, with Prost first and Lauda second.